Hello, welcome to Bob's Dungeon. My name is Bob, I'll be your host. And back in the 80s, Robotech was a very popular series. And since then, it's got a pretty big cult following, even though not a lot of new material has been made for it over the years. Comic books, games, and so forth. And they had one movie out a few years ago, but not a lot aside from that. Back in the 80s, a company known as Palladium Games made a role-playing game for Robotech. And they put out lots of books. They've since let the license lapse, and another company has put out some material for Robotech as far as role-playing games goes. But Palladium Games put out a lot of material for Robotech. And in this video, we're going to talk about one of those books. We're going to talk about the Sentinels. This book has 160 pages and a copyright of 1995. This is the 7th publishing of the book. It was published by Palladium Games, and all of the artwork in this book is in black and white. It's pretty decent. So let's go ahead and look at that artwork. This is the first picture we see when we open the book. Some of the artwork in this book is recycled from some of the earlier books, but it is all pretty decent. There is also new artwork for this book, which captures the Robotech feel pretty good. It has art of the alien creatures in this book, so you know what they look like. It has pictures of some of the enemy that you'll run into, so that you'll know what the things look like that you're fighting. It also has updated looks for some of the mecha in this game, which have evolved in some really beefy states, such as this Spartan here. To play this game, what you're going to need is, of course, a copy of this core rulebook and a full set of dice. A full set of dice containing a 20-sided die, a 12-sided die, preferably two 10-sided dice for rolling both percentiles and tens, an 8-sided die, a 6-sided die, and a 4-sided die. Character creation in this game is pretty standard as far as Palladium games go. The first thing you'll do is you'll figure up your attributes. Your attributes are your intelligence quotient, your mental endurance, your mental affinity, your physical strength, physical prowess, physical endurance, physical beauty, and your speed. And the way you figure them up is you roll 4 6-sided dice, and you add the 3 highest dice together and put them in your attributes. However, when you add those 3 dice together, if the total is a 16, a 17, or 18, it's considered an extraordinary attribute, and you get to add that 4th die to the total, making it an even more extraordinary attribute. But after you get your attributes figured up, you figure up your hit points. Your hit points are your physical endurance plus a 6-sided die, and then you add another 6-sided die every time you gain a level. And after that, you'll want to pick an OCC. An OCC is Occupational Character Class, and that's the class that your character belongs to in the game. There are the Robotech Pilot, the Destroyed Pilot, the Cyclone Rider, the Zentradi Warrior, the Military Specialist, the Biomechanical Engineer, the Communications, the Field Scientist, and after that you get Alien OCCs that you can play, and they are the Cambarian Warrior, the Proxian Warrior, the Garedian Warrior, the Spherian Warrior, and the I'm having trouble with this one, Paredian Wizard Warrior. A lot of warriors. But after you, in your classes, we'll tell you what skills your character gets and the percentages they are. It'll tell you what your STC is. Your STC is your structural damage capacity, and it's like extra points of damage you can take. Whenever you get damage done to you, it takes away from your STC first before going to your hit points. The STC is like cuts and abrasions, small little things, and then your hit points are the real damage, broken bones, shattered arteries, that kind of thing. But after you have your class, you'll then pick an alignment. And There are 3 core alignments broken into smaller parts. You have your good alignments, and you can pick either principled or scrupulous. You have your selfish alignments, which are unprincipled and anarchist. Then you have your evil alignments, which are miscreant, aberrant, and diabolic. And the attribute system in this is pretty cool. I like it. After that, you get your equipment, which is figured out by what OCC you chose. And that's it for character creation. The rules in this game are standard as far as plating games go. When you make an attack, you roll a 20-sided die. And if you roll a 5 or better, you hit. If you roll 4 or under, you miss. Now, if you're wearing armor, that'll change that number. And if it rolls under whatever your armor rating is, let's say you're wearing armor that has an armor rating of 12, then that means they have to roll a 12 or better to hit you. But if they roll somewhere between a 5 and 11, then the damage is done to your armor. If they roll 4 or less, it's a miss. So that's pretty nifty. And that's how the combat works. When you're using your skills, though, it uses percentile basis. All the skills have a percentile to them, and you roll within that, whatever that percentile is, on a percentile roll, and you succeed. If you roll above it, you fail. And that's pretty much the rules for the game. Pretty simple. Now, Sentinels can really be considered like the 3rd chapter of the Robotech saga. And what it is the Earth has pretty much been destroyed. There's still people there fighting, but the humans have put together the SDF-3, which is a big spaceship, and these aliens showed up and helped them with it. So the humans in this alien coalition have dubbed themselves the Sentinels and are going to take the fight to the Robotech Masters. Well, what they didn't know was the Robotech Masters left to come to Earth to deal with things themselves. And somewhere they pass themselves in transit. So, this game is you're part of that crew taking the fight to the Robotech Masters who are no longer there. So what they're doing is they're freeing all the enslaved races that the Robotech Masters are forcing to work for them. And that's pretty nifty. And they never really completed this as far as the cartoons go, the original series. Now, they did a better job at completing things in the novels, which I've read several of them, but I haven't finished the whole thing. So I'm really not sure how it ended. But then years later, they made another movie called The Shadow Chronicles, and it touched on all that a little bit. But this game has everything you need to play. It is its own game aside from Robotech, but it's still part of the Robotech series. There are some adventures in the back that you can use to get you going. There are write-ups on some of the main characters from the series itself, and just everything you need to play the game. Equipment, mecha, and stuff like that take up a huge chunk of this book. And there's a lot of information on them. And that's really about it. There's no character sheet to photocopy and use in here, which is unfortunate. But, you can use the character sheets from earlier Robotech games if you want, because it's the same rules, same kind of stuff. And that's really about it for it. If you're a fan of Robotech, this is pretty neat. Which brings me to 3 questions. Would I play a character in this game? And I'm going to have to say yes. And because I like Robotech, and the Sentinels is pretty open, so there's a lot you can do. Would I run a game using the Sentinels? Yes, I would. I haven't had a chance to yet, but if I had the gamers for it, I would definitely run it. But I'm more into the older Robotech stuff myself. But I would run it. Would I recommend this book? And yes, I would yes, I would recommend it. The Robotech Sentinels is a pretty good story. It's got a lot you can do in it because everything's so open and they never really finished it. So you can pretty much do your own thing with it. And that's pretty much all I got to say for the Sentinels right now. Thank you for joining me. I had a look at this book, and hopefully you'll join me next time where we'll talk about something else. Bye.